we can't control what's about to happen, but everything that we're thinking, feeling, doing all the time is setting up our future. Everything is good as it is right now. What you're doing is enough. Even if you are going to try to talk yourself out of it, you're still whole the way you are. You're still good. You're still worthy.
Those who are tuning back into the podcast know that this is all about helping you to find your inner wholeness, to give you tools and perspectives. And today we have a beautiful person here, Shannon, who does exactly that through her own offerings. And maybe as a start, you can say to people, what do you do? Or what's your passion? What's alive in you right now?
Yeah, definitely. So the what do you do question is always really hard for me to answer. It's not a bad question at all. It's just, for me, I'm like, what exactly do I do? Like, what's my niche? What do I help people with? But I guess I can just say, like, helping people, more so women I tend to help, feel better about themselves and their lives. Like, we're already so hard on ourselves. We're already living in times that so much is going on. There's so much negativity in the world. It's so easy to be drowning in that, like I was for so long. And what I found from when I got my own type of support was that there's another perspective. There's another way to look at things. There's another way to feel about your life. And so once people helped me with that, I wanted to help people feel that way as well. Like, it's okay, whatever you've experienced. It's okay, whatever you've done, the shitty things, the messy things, whatever. Like, you can change any of that. The past is in the past. And I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, just helping people recognize that they have power to change things, that they can feel better about whatever they've experienced. They can create so much possibility, any possibility really, I believe, in the future. So yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about. Like, I love being in spaces where people can start to see and feel that for themselves if they've never felt that way before. I love when seeing people have a moment where they're like, I just experienced so much love for myself. I just felt so good about something I did. I felt so accomplished, and it's really beautiful to witness that.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. That really rings true to me. And we talked a bit before the podcast, and you mentioned that you started with the mindset, with the beliefs, and then you went deeper. And I know for me that was also the case. So I'm curious to hear, how did you discover that only the mindset is not enough and you need to go to the body, to deeper techniques?
Yeah. So actually, I did start the other way first. Like, I got trained in yoga and body, kind of like therapeutic movement. I started there. I loved it. I was passionate about doing yoga. And then I started getting into the more holistic world of things. Like, I was always interested in therapy. Like, that was kind of what I studied in school, and I was heading down that track. And then when I started to find, like, oh, there's another way of helping people, like coaching, you can have these more creative ways of supporting people, different types of tools that maybe aren't utilized in the therapeutic space, not all spaces, of course. So when I started shifting into the coaching realm, I loved the topic of mindset. I loved this whole idea because I do believe that our thoughts are creating our reality. Like, I really believe that what we see is possible for us is what's possible for us. The self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe, like, you'll never have this thing, you're never going to show up in ways that's going to bring you that thing. It's not really even that woo-woo, but, like, if you don't believe it, you're not going to even take the actions to try to get it. So it's also like, yeah, that makes sense. And so that's why I started to brand myself as that. I was like, I really love talking about mindset, our beliefs, our subconscious beliefs, how they were formed in our mind at a young age, how we are moving through life with them. And that was my interest for a really long time. And then I started to think about, like, our body, though. Like, why am I able to repattern and rewire my mind, but sometimes my body is saying something different? Like, my body is feeling anxious or depressed or stressed. So, and I don't think you can just think your way out of that in those moments. Yes, you can change your beliefs so that maybe those emotions happen less frequent, but if there's a moment where we're just feeling this certain way, like, we need to feel that and address it and process it and move through it and all the things. So I was like, okay, I'm not just into mindset. Like we got to talk about the body too. And then of course, like a sort of spiritual connection to something greater than you. If you just think you're operating for yourself and you're alone in this world, like that doesn't feel great either, at least from my experience. When I feel the most purpose, when I feel the most alive, is like there's a meaning to my life. Like I'm serving, I'm doing good, I'm helping people, we're all connected, and that helps me feel better. And when I've worked with clients and I've heard from people, that also helps them. So whatever that looks like, doesn't need to be a certain religion. It could be your own type of thing you've come up with. It could be a religion, but just like feeling that there's meaning in everything.
I have so many questions. I'm like, oh my God, I need to stop you, but I don't want to stop you.
Yeah.
Because we just connected. It's not that I know you well. So it's very curious for me. Okay, first, starting with the mindset. How do you change the belief, that limiting belief? Like what tools have worked best for you for that?
Yeah, well, first, I think there's finding out what the limiting beliefs are.
Identifying.
Like getting really clear on that, because if someone just said limiting beliefs to me like 5 years ago, I would have been like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't know what mine are, you know what I mean? So really identifying, I think you could look at what triggers you. You could look at like what really brings up strong emotions in you. You could look at where the areas of your life that are painful and stressful and what you're really trying to get. Like if there's something you really, really want, a relationship, money, a career, but it's just not working out. Like, well, what's underneath it? Are there, beliefs that you're not worthy? Are there beliefs that you're not able to make this happen, that you're not smart, that you're not talented? I've had all of those. So it's like uncovering those and then working with them, like challenging them. You can, for each belief, you can go through and challenge them by like looking at a list of where is that not true? Like you're telling yourself that, but where is it not true? Where is there a possibility that it's really not true at all? And questioning yourself, trying to wire in the opposite. Sometimes it is through doing, like taking action. If I say I have this belief that I am just not good at public speaking, it's just the way I am, I'm not talented. If I go and put myself in situations where I'm going to be public speaking and I do it over and over, that's going to change, because there's no way that I'm not going to get better. There's no way that I'm not going to get better and then prove to myself that, okay, I can do this thing that I like previously was so convinced that I could never do things like this. So yeah, I mean, journaling is amazing. Asking yourself the questions. You wanted to say something about journaling?
Journaling, for me, journaling, yoga, and nutrition, like all were the tools that changed my life completely. And I saw on your Instagram you shared some like journaling list of questions that you ask, and I have my own questions list, and I write like whenever a new question comes up that I really like, I add it to my list and I use it, and it's just been really great. So what I hear from you about the belief changing, it's mostly like cognitively by actually challenging it. And for the listeners, they can start as well if you want to see what's behind it. What I like to do, and maybe you do something similar, is, for example, topic of money. Like if something's not working out with money, I just write down money and then tune into myself and just start writing like for 5 minutes nonstop, writing everything that I believe about money. Because first few minutes is gonna be like, well, money is something that I can buy stuff. Money is something I have to earn. And then something can come like, oh, money is something that if you have a lot, then you're bad. And all of these start coming up. So for me, journaling was really, really good for that. It's like the cheapest therapy there is.
Yeah, I like that you said you wrote for an extended period of time, because sometimes with a question, with journaling prompts, with therapy, with coaching, any of these things, if you just try to answer at the top of your head, like the first thing that comes to mind, there's usually way more underneath it. And so when you are journaling and reflecting for like a longer period of time, more stuff is like getting pulled out. And that's maybe what's the core of it or the root of it. Like answering the question for a long time, even when you feel like I'm done writing, I'm done answering this. No, like keep writing and see what comes up.
Just put a timer for like 5-10 minutes and nonstop write.
Yeah.
And in my hypnotherapy training, they always were saying like, ask the same question like 5 times in a different way, because each time there's something behind, until you feel like, oh, that really clicked.
Yeah.
So finding the beliefs, journaling, therapy works best, but journaling, I guess, is the cheapest therapy there is. So you can start with that and then see how you can challenge that belief. What was the deepest rooted and most destructive belief that you had, most detrimental to your life?
I think the belief of I'm not worthy, and I think that's still there in some capacity. I think, it's like hard to eliminate it from every area of life. But yeah, just not being worthy of the things that other people have and the way that they live, and just thinking, oh, because of my past, because of things I've done. For example, I used to be someone who was very self-destructive. I used to party a lot. I used to drink a lot, very much in that space of life, living in New York City, unconscious. And like after I shifted away from that, I used to feel like, well, how can I be worthy of love, or how can I be worthy of a career that I want if I've been this way, Like I didn't just start out being spiritual. I didn't just start out like being so good at journaling and helping people and being intuitive, and then I feel worthy. No, I felt unworthy because of all these things, and then I had to really work with that and changing that belief. Again, spiritual connection really helped with that too, because I believe that I needed those things to get to where I am today. I needed those challenges, those hardships, those lessons learned. So now I don't necessarily see these things as so negative and so painful. I also believe that at the root of a lot of stuff that we do, it's like an innocent thing. Like for me, going to party and drinking was me just trying to fit in and just trying to have connection with people. It was destructive. It wasn't good for me, but the intention behind it was like so innocent, like so like childlike. And so connecting with that childlike intention makes you feel less hard on yourself, I guess.
Oh yes. You know how big I am about IFS, about self-compassion, because recently I was reflecting about those different scopes of emotions, like the anger, shame, guilt, loneliness. And what I realized is that all of it is an expression for love. You know how kids, they're sometimes acting out in a need for attention, and it seems like that kid is angry, detrimental, it's a bully, but all it's doing is a cry for love in different emotions, different expressions. When I first got trained in hypnotherapy, one of the modules was parts hypnotherapy. And then when I went deeper into IFS, I just realized how effective that is, because that's what I mentioned about asking like 5 different questions. Okay, so what's that part trying to get you? What's that part trying to give you or protect you from? And you can write out, all the listeners as well, all the different ways that this destructive behavior or belief system is trying to protect me, to gain compassion over it, and then it kind of dissolves naturally. So we're kind of creating a roadmap for changing the beliefs unexpectedly. So first is identifying the belief through journaling or writing, talking, therapy, and then it's the change work is to see where you can challenge it and then see what it's trying to give you. Because when you have compassion, it kind of dissolves. We've talked a little bit before about being harsh on ourselves, and all my life that was the biggest thing for me. And I remember I was in India in my yoga training, and then I met one, I don't know how to call him, like a teacher, and he just told me to, look, next time you're being like angry about yourself, being harsh to yourself, he says, remember my face. And he said, stop it. You know, it was like all the Indian accent and everything. It was so funny. And I tried to do that and it didn't work because I was like, no, you, go out. Stop. Why are you trying to, like, I'm tired of you. And that just got louder and louder and louder. And then I realized, oh, okay, what are you trying to get me? And then it was this big monster that I saw inside of my, like in my mind's eye. And when I came to it with the compassion, it just like a balloon, you know, became like a little, don't remember what it transformed into, but something very small and beautiful and sad. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So your belief was you're not worthy, and you said that it still shows up in some areas of your life. How do you deal with that? What's your process like?
Yeah, I think, well, my mind immediately went to going to spaces where I do feel this deep sense of connection, like space like this, being on a podcast with you, where I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time. Like that feeling, I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but when you're just in the right place, you're hearing these teachings, you're hearing these lessons, you're having an amazing conversation with them, amazing connection. And that just like brings me so much energy back into myself. And I'm like, no, I am worthy. Like I created this for myself. I made this happen. I'm here for a reason. It's easier to get into that space when maybe there's some like external things not aligning the way that you want them to align. And then maybe, you know, the mood swings, you're on your period, or you're just going through, you're in a funk. And so, of course, like feeling that too, allowing yourself to feel it, like that's something that I like to do. I like a lot of like movement-based work where I studied yoga and like movement therapy, and the style that I would teach other people is kind of really like go with what feels good in your body. Like even if it looks weird, even if the movement is weird, it's not like this rigid, you have to align your body in this yoga pose. You're just flowing and feeling what's happening in your body. I like to do that a lot. Dancing and meditation helps a lot too. Sometimes if I'm feeling really low and I can put on maybe some binaural beats or some of those like frequency sounds and just listening, feeling, tuning in, sometimes that can help move those emotions or that belief of worthiness out. I'm like, okay, this is challenging me. I'm being challenged right now, but there's a reason in it. There's a purpose in it. And like, it's my duty to work through it.
Beautiful. Not running away, but going into it and feeling it. I love that. Have you noticed a pattern, what usually triggers those feelings of unworthiness, or it just comes random? It's not something.
Yeah, I don't know. Like all of my work and my life is like looking at patterns, and I've been able to identify some things like super clearly, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense that happened in every area. But I don't know. Sometimes I think like for emotions, it's kind of hard to figure out what's impacting them, because I could have like a great day lined up, or I could have had a great day and then I'm just not feeling that well. And then the other time, other things happen where maybe there's not even that much happening that day. And I'm like, everything is going my way. Everything is wonderful. Yeah. Everything's aligning. The sun is shining. I have this coming up. I don't know. It's like, for me, I don't know if I can necessarily identify it.
Yeah, totally get you. And that really, do you know Bashar? He's doing like channeling messages. Mm-hmm. When I discovered him when I was in a deep dark night of the soul. I was like, I don't want to live anymore. And then somehow by accident on YouTube, I discovered him. And I was like, what the hell is this nonsense? Like, is this a joke? Is this actually real? And just because I was like so curious, and not curious, not the right word. I was just like perplexed. Mm-hmm. And that kept me watching the video. And then I realized, oh, actually that guy said some quite good stuff. And that's the thing. Looking at all these different religions, everything comes back to the same thing, same laws of the universe, just in a different way. Because for some people, Christianity really speaks. For some people, Hindu. For us, Buddhism is very close to our hearts. And I got this reel of Bashar speaking yesterday. And the question he got was about fear. Like, why am I experiencing fear? And he was saying, fear is showing you where you are misaligned with the energy, like with the flow of life. Basically, what you were saying is that we get those energies, emotions that you're not worthy, and that is showing you, oh, where am I not aligned with my core, with my soul? Because when you are in your heart, in your soul, there is no place for unworthiness when you're in your center. So just wanted to share that. I want to ask you, what was your deepest spiritual, experience where you felt your core or whatever it was? You're really curious.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like I've gotten this question before, and I don't have one moment where this happened. It was kind of like over three like chunks of time where I had these like really deep awakenings, I guess you can call it. The first was in my yoga teacher training when I realized there was this other way to life. Like I was always a spiritual person, but then when I was like immersed in these teachings and connecting to something greater, and then also like our bodies and how we're moving energy in our bodies, I was like, whoa. And so that like unlocked this whole new perspective for me. And then another one happened during COVID, being, you know, closed in, shut in, like not that many distractions, not that many things to focus on. And I went through this experience of questioning a lot, like questioning like what's going on in the world, what's going on with our governments, each other, why are we fighting, why are we so divisive, and kind of just like also realizing that we can question things. That was one like kind of awakening for me of like, well, you can question every single thing in your life. Is this good for you? You don't need to just do the things that you were just handed to and the way that your parents did things and the way that your grandparents did things and so on and so forth. Like we usually are just following in those steps without thinking about it. We're maybe doing certain patterns and habits because everyone else around us is doing it, but is it good for us? Is it right? You might feel like a black sheep, like doing something totally different, but what if that's better for you? So I went through that. And then when I found Buddhism, and that next like crack open awakening moment of like, oh my gosh, we create our reality. Like we are dictating what's happening next. We can't control what's about to happen, but everything that we're thinking, feeling, doing all the time is setting up our future. And if you believe that, then you want to be really conscious of what you're doing and what you're thinking and feeling. And so taking responsibility for everything in your life. I forgot if that was the question, but
no, it was about your connection to spirituality. And again, so many questions that I want to ask. Where do we start? Maybe let's start from where you've ended, was about Buddhism. Is how did you discover it, and what were the influential teachers? Who do you follow? The teachings? How do you practice?
Yeah. So when I lived in New York City, I had ClassPass, which is where you can take a bunch of different classes, and I was always taking different yoga studios. So I found this studio called 3 Jewels, and I took, I think, a yoga class there, maybe a meditation. And then they also had this offering of, it was called like Enlightenment Club. And their whole thing is bringing these really Eastern teachings to the West and making them really practical for everyone. Because we might not be able to just open this textbook, these ancient texts, and understand it and be like, how can I apply this to like this generation of social media and corporate world and city life and all this stuff? Like it might feel so distant. So what they did was like take these teachings and make them so practical for our real lives. So I remember I took like just like an Enlightenment Club thing. It was more casual, just like a discussion. And then it was during COVID. I always remember that I liked that studio, but they were sending out emails for like a course that was coming up, and they have these Dharma courses. They're all kind of sequential, leading to basically like what the monks study, but it's over, I think you can do it in like 5 or 6 years, or you can do it faster if you take the courses like really quickly on your own. But they're teaching from this lineage, the Gelugpa lineage, or the Mahayana way is kind of what it's called. And yeah, so I took that course in the summer, and I was like, oh my gosh. So the course is like, they're teaching you these texts, they're having meditations to go along with it, they're having you try out these teachings, these practices that are from 2 main concepts. Do you want me to go into them?
Sure.
Okay. One is karma, which most people know about, karma, but their description of it is like the movement of the mind and what follows. So the way your mind is moving and then what's happening next. So, right, if my mind is thinking this thought and then I'm responding, they am like thinking that I don't like this person over there, and then my reaction to it is to be rude to them. That's like the thought and the action, and that's going to grow. Those are the seeds that I'm planting. If I'm planting seeds of dislike for other people, it's likely that I'm going to be experiencing people not liking me. And that's the concept. And then it also goes hand in hand with the other concept of emptiness, which you're a big spiritual person. I know other people probably have heard this in different places in different ways, of how nothing has like a true nature to it. Maybe neutrality is like the way to explain it. We are making the meaning of the experience. We're the ones saying we like this, we don't like this, this is good, this is bad. No one is agreeing across the world universally that the same thing is appearing the same way. And that's the concept. So that means if we all are having these different experiences, then we can change them. If there's nothing that's like fixed. If there's nothing that is always bad or always good, that means like we can change it.
Interesting, because I've been in Buddhism for quite a few years. I don't know if you've done Vipassana. It's a lot about tuning in to yourself. And interesting hearing you, that's not how I would describe Buddhism and what it is for me. That's why I was so curious to hear what it is for you. And it makes sense, totally. And that's why I love Buddhism as teachings so much, because you can just find so many applications of it. And yeah, for me, mostly what rings true, I've been recently looking into Jack Kornfield and his teachings, and I loved one sentence that he said recently that it really stuck out to me, because I've been to Vipassana, I've been meditating, and I'm experiencing this, now I'm experiencing my whole body, dissipating, my heart opening, and it can be so exciting, kind of like the spiritual ego, what else can I experience, and kind of like measuring, because my mom, my brother also went to Vipassana, my partner, and we're like, what did you experience? And it's kind of like, I had the whole body dissipation, so it's kind of like, it can sound like the spiritual ego. And I really loved what Jack Kornfield said about, you're missing the point. It's not about the experience, it's about who's experiencing. And I was like, shit, that really brought me back to that. Yeah, lovely. Have you done any plant medicine trips? Or
I have.
Do you want to share?
Sure. Yeah, I haven't done one in like a really facilitated setting, but I did study. I used to work for a mental health center, and I studied a little bit too about how to facilitate, and then I've self-facilitated to myself. So the way that I would do it is I would take mushrooms and I would go in with like a specific intention of what am I looking for resolve on, like what's really challenging for me, what is coming up for me, and then usually start with like journaling. And then for my experiences, it always ended up in like me just like being with myself. There wasn't anything like doing. It was kind of like an internal experience, usually just like a long like laying down or meditate. One time I had like a really crazy, like the clearest mind, like the longest almost like meditation. It was so weird. It was like I wasn't even altered. It was like my mind was so clear, and I was able to just meditate for a long time. But from those experiences, they just kind of confirm what I'm already learning and studying. It's like, you are love. Everything is connected. Nature is so freaking beautiful, and we forget how beautiful it is. Everything's alive, everything's moving, and you can get that deep experience of it, that feeling. So it's easy to forget. It's easy to go back out into the world and be so distracted, and all these things are happening, and blah, 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 blah. You have so much work to do, very much in that, like, do. So I feel like for me, those experiences have just been reminders for me of like, yep, listen to this, go inward.
Beautiful. I just today finished listening to your podcast. What was his name again?
Benedetto.
Yeah, definitely go have a listen. It was so connecting to the heart for me. I was really ringing truth. My whole body was reacting like, yes, because I can see that he has that embodied experience, because we can have the understanding that, all is love, everything's important, that's about love, and nothing else matters. But then when you really go into the trip, you actually experience what it's like, and that changes things. For me, doing mushrooms, I also did self-facilitated session with just iFolds, and there's playlists designed for therapeutic studies for depression studies that people use in scientific setting. That's what got me into the whole plant medicine, because before that I was a bit scared about, losing my mind or something. And then I saw
too.
So much research. I'm like, you know what? I will give this a try. And it was so beautiful. And also IFS, internal family systems, compassion to our whole body, all of our systems really goes hand in hand with mushrooms, because you can get to see, in my last trip I met my shame, and I had so much compassion and ability to hold it. And for people who don't have that ability to meet with the darkest parts of themselves, mushrooms, I think they're great. And what I'm hearing from you, you do a very light trips where you can still do something else, or?
I mean, I haven't taken like the hero's dose, like the highest dose, but I wouldn't say it was like a micro dose. So it was like kind of in the middle of that. I've had a very deep experience on it and been okay, to like move around a little bit, but I'm not like able to like think that well. And another thing that I wanted to add to it too is I really feel from these experiences how the problems become so small, because maybe we feel like there's something so wrong right now in our life. It's so hard, so challenging. We can't see the other perspective of it. Say you've been really, as a woman, like you're in your 30s and you want a relationship and it's been so hard to find a relationship, and all you feel is like bad that you haven't had that yet, this love, or, you haven't figured it out with your career, you're not where you want to be, you're struggling, and why didn't you figure it out? But when you go into that experience, it's like you're almost like zoomed way out from that, and that problem is like not even a problem anymore. And that's a really powerful feeling, because it's not easy to get to that state. Like we can kind of like take steps away from it, with all these tools and these practices, but when you get like an embodied experience of like the problem is so far away, and you can have that without psychedelics as well. I felt that in movement, I felt that in breath work, I felt that in meditation. So, but like when you're really far away from your problem, you're just like, oh, okay, I don't need to feel that way about it.
Yeah, that's totally true. And what I've noticed with myself, maybe you can relate, is that once you experience that deep sense of the truth, then it's easier to remember it. And that's why I love hypnotherapy so much, because it can help you basically imprint the experience in your body, and you can always come back to it. I really love using NLP to kind of anchor it in your body. I've been using it for over 10 years, and it's just amazing. So I haven't done many trips. I've only done a couple. And because I don't need more. I just need once, and then I can keep coming back to that experience and to that wisdom that I've experienced. So I'm curious, what was it? You said you had a deep experience with mushrooms. Would you be open to sharing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, kind of just like what I was sharing before about this really deep sense of love. Like I had one moment of that where I was just feeling like so much love for myself. Because again, I was probably going into the trip struggling and down on myself and hard, and life sucks right now. And then when I was in it, in the experience, like I just felt so much love for myself. Like I was like, you're so beautiful. I just love you so much. And I think in that moment, like I looked like crazy because I don't know. People say like don't look in the mirror when you're tripping because
I had that experience. I was feeling so wonderful in my body. I was like, I'm so sexy. I'm so beautiful, like divine. And then I went to pee and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I look like a rat or something.
It does do that. But I was in that moment like, I love you so much to myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it doesn't, anything you've done, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Like I'm here for you. Like me just talking to myself. And I remember I really reflected after that. Like I took a lot of notes from the experience of like, wow, first of all, how did I have that many thoughts and realizations in like a few hours of time? Like that's crazy. Not crazy, but it feels like that afterwards and you remember it all too. I mean, I'm not remembering it as vividly now. That was like maybe a year or more ago, but in aftermath of it, like it was so clear. It wasn't like you're on another drug and you're blacking out and you don't remember what happened. Like it was so crystal clear that I was thinking these thoughts, I was having these feelings, and I was able to like so clearly articulate them after. But yeah, I just remember that feeling of, safety and love and connection to myself. And after that, it was like things were a little bit easier. Things were a little bit lighter.
I love that. And how also you get so much neuroplasticity after that, and you can retrain those pathways by actually consciously repracticing that. I love that. Okay, we talked a bit about being harsh on ourselves, and now we also touched upon that. I feel like the unworthy part is a bit connected to that as well. I'm just thinking back, we started with a mindset, belief changing, and kind of now we can go more towards the body part, I guess. And what helped you the most to integrate that harsh inner critic? Yeah, what was your journey towards that integration?
Yeah, I think a couple of the things that I've already mentioned, well, I guess it depends on what I'm being hard on myself for. Like, if it was for things from the past, that was stuff that I was saying that I was able to like work through and repattern and feel better about, feel like through understanding my beliefs, feeling like that all that meant to happen for a reason. And that belief, that connection allowed me to kind of like release that judgment of my past and that it's okay. Everything happened the way it was meant to. But I think the way that the inner critic comes up more now is in the like, well, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing more. And again, from like a good intentioned place, like I want to help more people, I want to help more women, I want to grow and expand. But yeah, it's like feeling like you need to be doing and being productive, and it's kind of like escaping the present moment. I think that's like where the work is, like coming back to the present. Like everything is good as it is right now. Like what you're doing is enough. Even if you are going to try to talk yourself out of it and be like, no, but I need to do one more thing. Oh, I need to do one more thing. I need to finish one more assignment. Like you don't. Like if you don't, you're okay. You're still whole the way you are. You're still good. You're still worthy. So yeah, I think it's just like that drawing back out of that mind that wants to tell you to do more, and that is your result. Because if you know anything about this, you do a little bit more and it's still not enough. You still want to go further and further and further. So it's like learning to be happy for what you have. Gratitude, another big practice for that, I feel like is helpful. Like, okay, look at all that you are doing and look at how much you have accomplished. You've come so far. I also use like this comparison to the past. I'll like reflect back on, look at all of these things you've done in the last year. Look at all these things you've done in the last 5 years. Look how much you've changed since 10 years ago. You've grown so much. And then that is like a good feeling of like, okay, I'm in a good place. I'm where I'm meant to be. There's no need to be critical. And yeah, so a lot of different things.
I hear that. What you were saying about enough. In one of the podcasts, you shared a story about the fisherman, that a businessman comes and like, I think people know that story. And that happened to us. We were the businessmen because in Ubud, we lived on top of a Balinese family. Like they had the first floor, we had the second floor. And we're like, hey guys, you can offer this workshop for Westerners to how to make this, and then you do massages, you can do the massage, then you can do the guides, look, you're so good at gardening, you can, do gardening for others, you can do projects, and then you can do this whole business and rent this out daily and stuff. And they were looking at us, and they're like, oh, but we're okay. Like, he already now does gardening that he enjoys. He works a few hours like cleaning the villas, and then they're just enjoying time with their family. And here we came like, oh, but you can do this, and then you can, you can have a better life. Like, what's it for? So that's what I really noticed with Balinese. They have enough. And even the owner of this house, we were chatting with him, and that feeling is just so immersed in him. He has enough. He's like, oh yeah, but I'm good. I'm good. I don't have to always keep striving. And I know that for us, I definitely relate to that. Oh, and especially as business owners, there's always one more thing.
Wow. Wait, as you were telling that story, I mean, that is such like a powerful teaching that I think we should talk about a little bit, which is this idea that, and very well-intentioned, of course. Your intentions were pure. You wanted them to make more money. You wanted them to have an easier life from your perspective. But the thing that we do as humans is like we think we know what's best for someone else. Like we think, this comes back to that emptiness teaching of Buddhism. They must not be happy because they don't have that much money. My belief is that having more money makes me happy or can allow me to do more things. And I believe that they must think that way and that they must do things this way or they're not good, right? But we don't actually know that. We really don't know that. They're having a totally different experience. They're like, no, I don't want to do life that way. That doesn't fulfill me or that doesn't make me happy. But it's so hard because we're like in our view through our lens and we think that other people think that way and feel that way and they don't. And yeah, I think that comes back to, I think that can be really helpful when you're thinking about like relationships and other people and your expectations of them. And this comes up a lot in the work I do with people like wanting to help their friends and their family. You know, you've learned these things, you learn these tools and you want to share them with everyone. And you're like, oh my God, you have to try this meditation. Oh my God, you have to do this workshop. Oh my God. And then your friends or your family are like, I don't care. I don't want to do it. And then you're pissed because you're like, but you said you have so much anxiety. Like, why won't you just try this? And they don't want to listen. And then you get mad. And you have to realize, like, people are doing what they want to do. Of course, like, try. You know, of course, try to help people and open the door for them to come to you if, like, they're struggling. You know, you don't want to close doors on people. I don't want to, like, put up these walls. But thinking that you know what's going to help them and that's the right way to help them and that, like, you're the answer to their problem might not be true. And then that can help you with, like, reeling back those expectations and that pressure that you need to solve it. Maybe this is their path and they need to, like, go through some more shit before they can realize they want to do something different, and that's not on you. So, yeah.
That rings so true. I had a big realization about that. I can't really help anyone because it's very important for me to just know, like, I give all that I can, but I cannot change anyone. I cannot help anyone. I can just, and that's what my goal with the podcast. I know that I can't help anyone, but I can share, and maybe if they're at the right time, they will take it and they will use it. And one more thing was about, you talked about a bit about money and how all that is enough. And I was delving deeper into that topic because for the longest time I was like, oh no, I want to first, rediscover myself, all their inner thing and money. Yeah. I somehow had this aversion to going into the money topic because, oh, that's dirty. Oh, that's, I don't want to be superficial working on money. Like I want to work on my inner acceptance and everything. And now that I'm like, oh, actually, I feel so good in myself. So now let's look at the money issue. Maybe you can share something about your experience with money beliefs.
Yeah, money is a tough subject, I feel like. Well, I also think it's just another subject of all of these other different categories.
It's not different. It's
like relationships, money, feeling purposeful. Like all of these things are just like, what's the beliefs behind them and what's our energy towards them? How are we showing up towards them? And what you shared about, like, yeah, money is being this bad thing. I definitely had that for a while too, because I was studying to become a therapist and I was always taught, you're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to make a lot of money. So I was like, okay, I don't care because I'm going to do what I want to do and help people. I don't need to make a lot of money, whatever that means. But then when I started to do my own business, because that would have been working underneath someone, getting your stable paycheck and that's coming through. When I started working on my own business, there was so much there that I didn't know was there. Like, okay, now I am charging people and now I'm asking for people to pay me for a service and you're the service. It's not like it's a product where I'm like, okay, that cost that much to make. And like, yeah, I have to jack up the price a little bit because I got to like make some money from this product. It's you. And that's like, maybe this is like a totally different topic of money, but for me, it was so challenging and still is challenging of like, what's the number that you're worth? It's not about that. It's about the transformation you provide. But then I get into my head like, well, what if they don't get transformed? What if they don't do the work? And then you're charging. It's a whole spiral of beliefs. But it does come back down to the worthiness piece, because if you are like, I know that I'm worthy, I know that this program that I've created, that I've spent my life essentially building the knowledge and the experience to create, right? Like if you're the service provider, you know that, like you've invested in the courses, you've done your own healing, you've had these experiences, that's what you are helping someone through. It's priceless. And if you feel worthy, you'll be able to like confidently share your price, and whatever happens on the other side, I'm not here yet. Whatever happens on the other side doesn't matter, because you're so strong in that feeling of like, this is it, this is the price, and the people who want to work with you will, the people that don't won't. But yeah, it's really tough when you're coming up with that of like the money, and it's like your worth is tied into it. Like I said, I think it's different when you're working underneath someone. Of course, there's still so many challenges there, because like if you want to ask for a raise and you're uncomfortable asking for a raise and you want to be paid more, or you're selling a product, for me that feels a little bit different. But when it's like yourself at the center of it, and you want to help people, you want people to get this service, so you'll do it for free, but you also need to eat.
Yeah, that's the hardest part for me too, because I'm like, and I've done so many free sessions because people would reach out and like, oh, I don't have money to do it right now. And now it's shifting. Now I'm like, I don't have that extra energy to give, because I have other things to do. And yeah, it's all coming back to realizing how much energy it costs you to support someone in their session, and how much your energy is worth. How much do you value your energy? That's a big process for sure. So I definitely relate to that. I want to circle back to spirituality, because you kept mentioning like, oh, I'm spiritual. Oh, I know you're spiritual. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to be spiritual?
Yeah, I think for me it means having a connection to something greater. Like I'm not just this brain in my body and that's it. And like I was born 32 years ago and I don't know when I'm going to die, but then that's it. Like that's the end of the existence. That's the end of life. I don't believe that. So for me, I feel like now I'm also in the reincarnation crew. I believe in that. I believe that we have been here multiple times, many, many times, and we keep coming back for experience lessons. I don't know. From the Buddhist perspective, it's because you haven't mastered your karma. You still have things that you've done. That's the belief there. So I feel like that resonates for me, because there were things I felt like I struggled with at a young age that like didn't really make sense with what I had studied. Like studying from, NLP or the therapeutic realm is like, yeah, your childhood trauma made you this person, which again isn't wrong. Like I do believe that, but for me there was things I was struggling with. I'm like, that doesn't really make sense that was something I struggled with so much. That feels like it's been something I've been struggling with for a long time. It feels like lifetimes. So yeah, feeling like, yeah, there's this deeper meaning to existence. It's not just like, become really successful and popular and make a lot of money and have a lot of things, because you can't take those things with you when you die. You can't take all your physical belongings. You can't take all your money with you. So I guess a question that helps me think about that is like, well, how would you want to be remembered after you're gone? Like, what would you want to be remembered by? People that you helped, things that you changed. Maybe you created something for people. Maybe you gave other people permission to do something. And that feels really nice. Like, okay, like there's like a meaning behind my life. And that feels, again, better to live by that than like, there's no meaning. Everything is random. Everything is chaos. That belief feels like painful for me.
Yeah, you can choose what you want to believe, and there is no meaning. Like, yeah, life is meaningless, but we choose where we want to put the meaning onto. And I keep realizing that nothing matters. What matters is what relationships I create, how people interact with me. And a few years ago, when I was struggling because I didn't want to do nutrition coaching anymore, it was kind of past era in my life.
Yeah.
Because that really set me on my spiritual path. When I cleaned my diet, I went on a plant-based diet. I was like, whoa, the whole world opened up. I could feel, the leaves, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And I wanted to help people in that. And then I transcended that. I went to different realms, and I was like, what do I do now? And the whole transition was very uprooting for me. And then I realized that I have this need, wanting to do meaning, to create something big and powerful, make an impact, and that was putting so much pressure on me. And then I had a friend who was ex-therapist. Now she just has a normal job, and I get so much from our relationship just by the way she is. And I had this conversation with her, and she shared that, Elena, now for me, meaning is my everyday interactions with people, and I can really see that. And she's happy living in her heart, and I feel like that was a shifting point for me as well, from I have to create big things and meaning and change people's lives, to like, okay, I'll just live in my own truth, connected to what's true to me, and just share that.
Absolutely. As you were speaking that, I thought about, this is like a very sad example, but like a kid who has a cancer or a disease and they die really young, what did they create? Did they start a big business? No, but they touched so many people's lives just from them existing. They didn't have to do anything. That's the problem that we think we have to do. We have to grow and expand and network, and we can do those things, but to leave an impact, we don't have to. You can do any of those. I also heard that example used with the janitor. A janitor, people maybe think that's a low level job, but what if that person is smiling and greeting everyone they meet, and they're having fun and they're loving their job and they're enjoying every moment of it? Who's to say that job is low level? Who's to say that job is less worthy than another job? So yeah, it's the way we are being that matters.
Oh yes, for sure. When I come back to Lithuania, that's where I'm from, and I go to the supermarket and I get so sad seeing those sad cashiers, and yeah, they're bringing on that energy, and it really gives on. Okay, I think we can start finishing off with a question of, if there was a billboard and you can only put one thing on that billboard for the whole world to see, what would you put there?
I just thought of it. I feel like it's cheesy. It's not cheesy, but the word love came up to me because I feel like that's all encompassing, all these things that we're talking about. It's coming down to that core root of love. And maybe that word, I guess maybe because for me, that word, when people are love yourself and self-love, those terms can kind of feel overused, and maybe they don't really make sense in the practical sense.
And if it was a sentence?
If it was a sentence, I feel like I would want to say something along the lines of, you can do anything. Something that people can, if they were going to really listen to that, that's what I would put. If they were going to hear that, see that, and be oh my God, I can. Oh my God, life is amazing.
Now that I asked this question, I realized it's pointless. Because words don't really mean anything. I've seen the self-love and all the quotes for so many years. It meant nothing. It meant nothing until I experienced it. Yeah. What one thing you feel if implemented, would make the world a better place?
No phone zones.
No phone zones. Nice.
Taking away technology for a few hours, maybe an hour a day, where people had to either be in nature or just be with themselves, or relaxing or doing yoga, really turned off from that. Unplugged, I feel would be a really great thing, because we do it from time to time, but it's so easily accessible. It's in our pocket. We're using it for work. It's there all the time. Our computers, our TV, everywhere. But if we were the moments that I feel so peaceful is when I'm really disconnected, and I have to make an effort to do that, because obviously otherwise what am I going to do? I'm going to bring my phone with me everywhere I go. I need it for directions. I need to call people. So if we all had to do that, I wonder what would happen.
I love that. What's your practice with setting boundaries around technology? Because you're online, you get clients online, your whole business is online. kind of. So how do you implement boundaries?
Yeah, so again, when I'm having experiences that I really want to relax, I'm going to make the effort to leave my phone behind. Or I mean, when I was in America, I did that more so. Like, I want to go out for a walk outside, or if I want to go down the street, I had a beach in my town. I was on Long Island Sound, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave my phone at home for like an hour or 2 hours and then just go and just be. And that felt really nice. Here, that's a little less common. I've been trying not to use my phone in the morning. I try to like leave it away from me when I'm working sometimes. Like if I'm working on my computer, just trying to leave my phone across the room. And then when it comes to like using social media, now like some days I'm like taking breaks from posting anything. I do go in the app, but I'm like, I can't be, for me, it feels too much to be like posting all day, every day, everything that I'm doing. Like there's things that I want to keep to myself, that I want to keep private and just not have to feel like I have to share everything. And that, for me, that feels a lot better because I know as a maybe newer entrepreneur or even later on down the game, like you feel like you need to share everything all the time and you don't. People are still going to value you. People are still going to respect you. People are still going to love what you share when you do share. And maybe it's even more powerful if you're not sharing every single thing. The stuff you do share is like the meaningful bits. So that's felt better for me. For like the last few days, I haven't really posted, even though I had stuff to post. I just was like, I'm not really feeling it. So I'm going to kind of like a little step back from social media. And yeah, what else? Obviously, I still go on my little scrolls, my scroll holes once in a while. And like, I just feel like shutting off and that's what I'm going to do. And it's okay.
But when you do a good job at curating your Instagram feed, it's actually like all my Instagram feed is so educational. True. All about therapy, all about somatic work. And I'm just like, I'm just going to go educate myself a little bit. And it's, because before I was like, I had so many like comedy and everything. And now that I filter that out, I'm like, actually, I might be changing my opinion on Instagram because after Vipassana, I did Vipassana this winter. And I came back, I had such a hard time on social media. I was just like, I don't know how to exist because that's the thing with the middle path. And that's what I wanted to ask you before. When you connect to the spiritual truth and to your center and, Buddhism, and then there's life and finding that balance. So I wanted to ask about your balance finding. And for me, with Instagram was like, okay, before I was in all these, like normal people. And then I went on complete detox. And then I was like, trying to find my equilibrium where I can be. And I'm curious to just hear your closing thoughts on how do you combine spirituality without bypassing, because it's very also easy to do, spiritual bypassing, what you mentioned before about realizing that all that happened was meant to happen. And for me, at least my own journey, I had a big spiritual bypass in the beginning of my journey. I was like, oh, everything is good. All my childhood trauma is like it was meant to happen. I don't feel any anger or anything. And then as I was digging deeper, I'm like, okay, actually, I just bypassed all of that. So having that and the reality, how do you combine that?
Yeah, I totally relate to that. And I definitely felt that way at the beginning too. But luckily, the Buddhism place that I mentioned, Three Jewels, they really want you to apply these teachings into this reality that we are living in. Like, we are living in the 21st century. We're living in this modern day technology. We're living in high stress environments, destruction around the world, and we're not meant to escape it. Like, we're not in a cave in India, like meditating all day, every day. And there's people that do that, and maybe they have really profound awakenings, and that's amazing. But I think there's a really big challenge and power in staying here in this life that we're existing in and taking these teachings into them. Like, how can we apply it into, our connection to our cell phones and social media? How can we use it as this tool that's helping us awaken more, or helping show us where we are still struggling and still triggered and still bothered? Like, it's all just like showing us, it's teaching us. And the stuff that we're seeing around the world, like how can we make the change every day in our in our lives to prevent that? I think that's another thing is like people feel helpless to something that's happening across the world, because in a sense you are, like, you cannot stop those governments from fighting. You cannot in this moment stop that. But the solution is not to like be really angry and build that anger and resentment up and the world sucks and fuck everybody, blah, blah, blah. What you can do is in your immediate surroundings, what can you do to not like allow that to happen? You know, if people are fighting and they're angry, can you not fight with the people around you and cause more anger and cause more chaos and cause more disruption? Can you bring some peace to the people around you, make them feel a little lighter, make them feel a little happier? Maybe, you know, you invite them to something fun, or you have a great conversation with someone, you make them feel safe. That's like the work. That's like you're making changes happen on the real level. You are impacting people, you are creating change, and that, I believe, is like a ripple out. So
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Create your own reality. Basically, yeah, it's hard to see all of that injustice and pain in the world and suffering, and to see those big contrasts of kids starving and then kids being spoiled and, you know, not satisfied with anything. And it took me a lot of practice to be okay that there is that polarity and I cannot change it. And actually one of my beliefs about money was that if I would be rich, then I would have to be, you know, servant to the world. I would not have my own life anymore, because now, you know, I can't go save those kids. I don't have the resource. But if I had the resources, I would be feeling so guilty of spending that on myself. And that's recent discovery. I'm like, okay, so I don't want to have more than I need, because then all of that more than I need, I will have to take care of how to distribute that, how to help others. Yeah, interesting. Mm-hmm. And closing off, I want to ask you one final question is, what is vitality for you?
Vitality. I feel like it's excitement and curiosity. Like vitality to me, I think of like freshness and alive. And so those feelings that come through are like, yeah, like you're looking around you, you're excited, you're taking in your surroundings. It's beautiful. It's a strong feeling. It's not like kind of faded and muted in the background. It's like very alive.
Aliveness. I love that. Yeah. And do you have anything to share with the audience? Maybe, I don't know, a course that you're now launching, a book, whatever you want to maybe do an offering, or where can people find you? I will also put everything in the show notes, but just if you want something to share.
Amazing. Yeah, so I'm available for one-on-one coaching. That's kind of the majority of what I do at this time, but I'm also launching a group soon, an online group program for women. Still in the process of building it out, but it's from what I like the work that I've been doing here in Bali and like being around like women's groups. I'm also hosting a retreat in the US in the end of October. All this will be on my Instagram.
Yeah, so I saw that one.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know there's so much more that we could talk about each of the topics for hours and hours. Maybe we'll do another one. And if you have any questions for us, for Shannon, you can leave them in the comments. And as always, share with a friend, because when you share podcasts like this with friends, then it opens up a deeper conversation between people, because then they're like, oh, so you also are listening about soul and, you know, karma and Buddhism and all these truths. Because in my own journey, that's what I realized. I was in an environment where nobody was talking about that. And then at some point, something clicked in my mind. I was like, I just started talking about people about soul and, you know, angels and stuff like that. And they were like, you know, Elena, I never told this to anyone, but I had this experience. And that created such beautiful relationships with people that I'm like, I never would have guessed that you have this in you, you know?